My name is Elena Ross. I am 33 years old, and I am a software architect from a quiet suburb outside Denver, Colorado. Last September, I came home from a 5-day work conference, rolled my suitcase up my own front walk, and found my clothes packed into moving boxes in the hallway, while a brand new deadbolt gleamed on my master bedroom door, and my older brother's football game blared behind it. My parents sat at my kitchen table, drinking coffee I had bought, acting like nothing had shifted. Taking my bedroom was only the opening move. By the end of that fall, my family would try to claim half my house as their own territory, and what I finally did about it would put 4 names I loved on a courthouse docket, in a room where being family counted for nothing. This is Hearthly Stories, and if you have ever been the responsible one, the one who fixes everything and pays for everything, this is going to feel familiar. The house was a 3-bedroom bungalow in Littleton, with a covered porch and an old cottonwood tree. I bought it 2 years earlier at 31, no help, no cosigner. I had been coding since I was 20, saving every spare dollar like it was scripture. The down payment took 9 years of skipped trips and a car that rattled at highway speed. I am explaining the arithmetic because my family never once did that arithmetic with me. In my family, I had been the fixer since I was a teenager. When my brother Caleb, 4 years older, drowned in credit card debt at 27, I paid it off. When our father's furnace died the same winter as his transmission, I covered both and called it a birthday present. When our mother wanted the whole family together for her 60th at a mountain resort, I paid for it, and nobody asked the cost, because nobody ever asks the fixer. Being useful felt like being loved, and I had not yet learned the difference. The house was the one thing that belonged only to me. My name alone on the title. I got exactly 2 years of quiet mornings on that porch before my mother called with a voice like warm honey, and said the sentence that started everything. "Honey, we need a small favor." Here was the favor. My parents, Diane and Frank, had sold the house Caleb, and I grew up in. The stairs had gotten to be too much, and they had put a deposit on a townhouse in a 55-plus community, with a move-in date about 6 weeks out. My father was also scheduled for hip replacement surgery, and a short-term rental that could handle a walker felt impossible. "Just until the townhouse is ready, sweetheart," I said, Mud. "You have all that space. Of course they could stay. He is my father." But I had watched enough family arrangements sour to know temporary is the most dangerous word in the English language, so I wrote it down. I sent them an email that night. Plain terms, guest room and hall bath, split utilities, and a date, 7 weeks, with a line that we would revisit together if the townhouse slipped. My mother replied in minutes, no sentence, just a heart emoji. I read that as a yes. I know better now. A heart emoji is not a yes. It is a door left unlocked. They moved in 2 days before the surgery, and the first week was fine. I drove him to the hospital, sat with my mother in the waiting room, set up the guest room properly. That is what family does. The small shifts started in week 2. My kitchen rearranged, my good knives hidden, my coffee maker demoted to the pantry for my mother's giant percolator. Then my father's recliner arrived, a wide brown chair aimed at a television that never turned off, volume near a jet engine. I let it go, because he was healing and the finish line was close. Then the finish line moved. The builder pushed the closing back nearly 2 months, citing delays. My mother relayed this with a strange brightness. "Looks like you are stuck with us a bit longer, sweetheart." That same week I overheard her on the phone with my aunt, easy and proud. "Oh, we are all settled in. You should see what we have done with our house." Our house. I let even that go. Almost by early autumn I lost my office. My father's physical therapist recommended a stationary bike, and my mother decided the only place, for it was my downstairs office, the one room where I could shut a door and do the work that paid for everything. She moved my monitor to the dining table anyway. "You are young, honey. You can work anywhere." So I took client calls at the dining table while a Western thundered behind me, and the percolator hissed. To be fair, my father did his exercises, and by autumn he had graduated from the walker entirely, climbing stairs like a younger man, which meant the medical reason for any of this had quietly expired. Nobody mentioned that. I marked a date on my mental calendar and promised myself a real conversation. Then my phone rang and the screen said Caleb. He never called me, not even on my birthday, only when something had broken, and this time the broken thing was his whole life. He was 37, until that spring a shift supervisor at a manufacturing plant that had just cut a third of its workforce. He had hidden the layoff for 2 months while telling his wife Priya, 5 months pregnant, that things were in motion. Their lease was ending. "So we are thinking we will just set up at your place until the baby comes," he said. Mom already said it makes sense. I told him I was sorry about the job, that I needed to think, because I already had a full house. That was not a no. I have replayed it 100 times knowing it was not a no. It was a maybe from a woman trained never to say the other word. That Friday, I flew out for a work summit. Sunday night, my best friend texted, random question, is there a moving truck in your driveway? I stood at my hotel window doing the time zone math and understood my mother had already opened my front door. I came home to a colonized house. Caleb's truck in my parking spot, the guest bedrooms stacked with their belongings, spilling into half my basement. Priya hugged me at the door, saying the drive up had been brutal. My mother beamed, family shows up for family, and squeezed my arm. I did not swallow it. I said, in front of everyone, that 6 weeks was the absolute limit while they found their own place. Caleb waved me off, relax, it is temporary, you sound like a landlord. Everyone chuckled, even my father, and the conversation moved on to nursery colors. Later that night, carrying a box blocking the door, I saw the label in Caleb's blocky handwriting. It did not say kitchen or clothes, it said master closet. He had not packed that box for a visit. He had packed it for a house he already considered his. Here is what temporary actually cost. My mortgage ran $2,200 a month. Mine, fine. But the utility bill for 5 adults, endless laundry, a television that never slept, climbed to nearly $580, almost double normal. Groceries bought Sunday were gone by Thursday. Nobody contributed unless I asked, and when I asked, my mother acted wounded, as if I had passed a collection plate at a funeral. Caleb's job search consisted of a gaming headset, and the phrase I am doing some consulting, delivered from my couch at 2 in the afternoon. He gamed until 2 or 3 in the morning, and Priya began nesting in my office, taping paint swatches beside the exercise bike, talking about when this is the nursery like it was already decided. I started staying late at work, and on the worst night sat in my own car in my own driveway eating takeout in the dark. The only quiet room I had left. In late September, I called a house meeting, 5 printed copies of a 1-page plan, chores, a fair utility split, and 2 dates in bold. My brother read the first line and grinned. She made us a spreadsheet. My mother put her hand flat on the paper like she was calming a spooked animal. Sweetheart, we do not do contracts in this family. We take care of each other. My father studied his placemat. Priya said the baby was making her tired, and somehow that ended the discussion. The pages ended up under a pizza box by evening. That night, I started a note on my phone, quietly writing down dates and quotes, a habit that would matter later. 10 days after that meeting, I flew out again, and that was the last night I ever slept in my own bedroom. I came home Monday to 4 boxes with my name on them in the hallway, my clothes folded by hands that were not mine, my books stacked like firewood. On my master bedroom door sat a shiny new deadbolt. I knocked, and Caleb opened it the way you would for a delivery driver, a game on my television behind him, diaper boxes on my bed, Priya's suitcase on my dresser. Oh hey, figured you would not mind, you are barely home anyway, and Priya needs the bathroom at night. My parents sat in the kitchen with coffee, and the instant I walked in my mother's eyes flicked to the ceiling and quickly back down. They had not been ambushed, they had helped carry the boxes. I said the room would be returned by the weekend, or we had a serious problem. My mother argued Priya needed the master bathroom at night. Though the 2 bedrooms shared the same hallway bathroom, Caleb and Priya had already been using for a month. She switched arguments without blinking. He is going to be a father, Elena. A father needs to feel like a man in his own space. In my house. I looked at my father, hoping for an ally, and he studied the newspaper like it owed him an answer. He said nothing. That silence still has weight. That Sunday, my family threw a dinner in my house to announce how they were dividing it. Caleb stood at the head of my table and unveiled the family plan. They would keep the master, my office would become the nursery, they would claim the living room in the evenings, and half the garage. Basically, the upstairs and front half is our space, he said, drawing a line in the air over my table, and you still have your little room, and the kitchen, since you are the cook around here anyway. I said one thing, Caleb, this is my house. He looked at me with genuine warmth and said the sentence I will hear for the rest of my life. Come on, Elena, it is not stealing if it is family. Nobody flinched. Forks kept moving. That night I stopped arguing and started reading Colorado landlord-tenant law instead. What I was doing back was, in the eyes of the law, mostly illegal, and what they were doing to me was mostly legal. The following week, Caleb annexed the garage. My mower and kayak ended up on the lawn, replaced by his workbench. I called the non-emergency police line, certain someone official could explain whose name was on the deed. A patrol officer took me aside on my own porch and gave it to me straight. My family had lived there for months, received mail there, that made them residents regardless of the deed. If I changed the locks or set their things outside, I would be the one breaking the law, an illegal lockout, and they could sue me over it. I would have to formally evict them like any landlord. Civil matter, ma'am. I am sorry. The next morning I filled a folder. The deed with my name alone, closing documents, mortgage statements, the original email with the 7-week terms, the heart emoji reply with its timestamp, utility bills, photographs of the new lock, the boxes, the kayak on the lawn, my printed meeting notes. Then I locked that folder in my car trunk because there was no drawer left in my own house that felt safe. I hired a landlord-tenant attorney, Renata Alvarez, gray-streaked hair, a handshake like a vice grip. She gave me the bad news first. My family were tenants at will, occupying with permission, no lease, no rent. Getting them out lawfully meant a staircase with no elevator, a written 30-day notice, then a statutory 3-day notice, then an actual eviction lawsuit, a hearing before a magistrate, and finally, if I won, a formal writ and a deputy at my door. 8 to 12 weeks minimum. Her retainer was $2,200. Then the good news, sole title, no lease, no rent ever paid, notices I could prove. Legally, this is the cleanest case I will see this month, she said. Emotionally, it is the worst kind I handle. Whatever happens, the family you had before the paperwork, that version ends. I told her I needed one more week to give my family one last real chance. A week later, I offered something more generous than they had earned. My parents could stay until the townhouse was genuinely ready, no deadline, if they backed me on one thing. Caleb and Priya needed their own place before the baby arrived, and I would give my brother $1,500 toward a deposit, plus movers, a gift, not a loan. Caleb's counteroffer was for me to sell him half the house at its old value before the market rose, or simpler, just add him to the deed for the baby's stability. One signature, Elena. I said no, just that word, maybe for the first time in my adult life. My mother set down her coffee cup. Do not make us choose, you will not like it. The family group chat lit up. The story circulating was not that my brother had taken my bedroom, it was that I was threatening to put a pregnant woman on the street. My aunts sent prayer emojis. My mother's church added us to the prayer list. Priya posted videos online, soft piano, her hand on her belly, captions about people who value square footage over blood. Only my mother's younger sister called quietly to say this exact thing had happened to another relative decades earlier. A house has a way of making people forget whose name is on it, then admitted she could not get involved. That week my mailbox changed the temperature of everything. Alongside my mail sat Caleb's insurance renewal, Priya's prenatal reminders, and on top, a postal confirmation that mail forwarding for both of them had been activated to my address, effective the last week of spring, weeks before they loaded a truck, weeks before I had given any answer at all. When I asked Caleb what that meant, he said over the kitchen sink, "It means I know my rights, little sister. Look it up, residency. You cannot just throw family out. No confusion, no accident. A plan," and I was the last to be told. I served the notices on a Thursday in October, 4 written notices, terminating permission in 30 days, certified mail. But I told them myself first, at the table where they had nodded away my bedroom. My mother read 2 lines and stood up with a sound I had never heard from her, saying I was doing this to my own mother. Priya cried into her glass. Caleb did not finish reading his. He tore it in half and smiled. My father read every word, folded it into quarters, tucked it into his shirt pocket, and quietly started clearing the dishes. About 10 days later, I nearly gave in. I found Caleb alone in the garage at 2 in the morning, turning his old employee badge over in his hands. 15 years I gave that place. Guys twice my age called me boss. Then quieter, "You were not even trying to beat me, Elena. That is the part I cannot live with." Standing there, I felt the ground tilt. Pity is quicksand, and I was in it to my knees. Morning came and he tapped the top of my head on his way to the coffee maker. "Sleep okay in your little room." And the window closed. My parents had one more card. In early November, my father had chest pains at dinner, real ones, gray-faced. We called an ambulance, and I sat in the waiting room doing bargains with God. Stable angina, new medication, no procedure needed. My mother turned to me. "I hope it was worth it. This is what the stress does to him. You are doing this to him." For a moment, she had me completely. Then an old neighbor recognized her. "Congratulations on the townhouse." Saw the crew finish up back in September. The townhouse had been ready for 2 months. They could have moved out before I ever printed a single notice. They had simply let the story stand because my mother wanted everyone under one roof when the baby arrived. They had chosen before I ever asked. The 30 days ran out at the end of November. Nobody packed a box. That weekend, Caleb threw a barbecue in my backyard, and when he caught my eye through the window, he raised his soda can. "Your move, little sister." He had done the math on 33 years of data. Elena folds, Elena pays. The following Monday, I delivered the 3-day statutory notices and taped a copy to my own front door for the whole street to see because shame had stopped being something I feared. My mother took hers into the guest room and shut the door. Priya filmed hers for another video. Caleb read his, snorted, "You will not do it, Court. You have never once followed through on anything that made Mom cry." He handed it back like a flyer. He was betting on the old version of me. Friday, I filed a formal eviction action. Ross versus Ross, a hearing set 18 days out. My family used every single day, an ambush baby shower thrown in my own house without telling me, a visiting uncle and the family pastor arranging a healing conversation that turned into a proposal for a 1-year lease in writing, and Priya crying in the hallway, asking if I would really put a newborn on the street. That last one nearly broke me. I called my best friend instead. She asked the only question that mattered, "Walk me through the deal, what do you actually get?" The answer was, "You get to keep paying, that is the whole deal." The night before the hearing, my mother actually knocked, and sat on the edge of my bed and spoke in her real voice for the first time all season. "Drop it, honey. Call the lawyer tomorrow, and everything goes back to normal." I told her normal had meant paying for a seat at a table the whole family owned and I was done renting it. I would rather be her daughter than her tenant, but I would not keep being her bank. "Then you will sit in that courtroom alone," she said. She was almost right. My mother did not come. Caleb did, in a good blazer, with a speech about verbal promises and sweat equity, one primed wall in the nursery. The magistrate asked 4 questions, anything in writing, his name on the deed, had he ever paid anything, did he dispute proper notice. 4 no's, each quieter than the last. Judgment for the plaintiff, move out within 10 days. In the hallway he called me a traitor loud enough that a bailiff drifted closer. I said, at kitchen table volume, "You keep saying, it is not stealing if it is family. The judge just gave it a different name. You taught me family keeps score, Caleb. I am just the first one who wrote it down. My parents used 2 of their 10 days. The truck came Thursday, my mother directing the loading of the recliner like a deposed queen. On the porch she said, "I hope this house keeps you warm, Elena," and walked down the steps without a hug. That still aches, and I have decided it is allowed to. My father stayed behind a few minutes, oiled the back gate hinge until it swung silent, set his house key on the counter beside an envelope with $400 in worn bills. "For the utilities, some of it," he said. I watched my father do this to my sister once. Whole family camped out in her place, called her selfish when she finally spoke up. I told myself I would never sit that quiet again. Turns out quiet is something you inherit, kiddo. I am sorry. He was gone before I could answer. Caleb used every one of his 10 days telling the group chat I would never go through with it, while Priya's father quietly boxed the nursery items behind his back. On the final morning, a deputy posted the notice, and a crew carried out everything my brother had refused to move himself. The baby's things set aside first, wrapped and staged safely in the garage. I sat at my kitchen table and listened to tape and footsteps and a truck door, and Priya's father, a big quiet man, arrived in his own pickup and loaded his daughter's life without a word, except once, to my brother mid-speech about betrayal. "Son, nobody took a thing from you. Get in the truck." They pulled away that afternoon, and that night, for the first time in 7 months, I heard my own refrigerator hum in an empty house. The locksmith came Saturday and rekeyed every door, legally, boringly, gloriously legally, while I drank coffee on my porch swing, like someone relearning a forgotten language. My nephew was born the following January, healthy, according to a photo a mutual friend forwarded me. I mailed a savings bond anyway, with a note. "Congratulations, the door is not locked, love, Elena." No reply came. My utility bill dropped back under $300, a rebate on my sanity. My office became my office again, except for one wall I left unpainted on purpose, the single wall my brother ever actually primed, and some mornings looking at it does the work of a whole therapy session. 2 weeks before the holidays, someone knocked on my front door and waited. My parents stood on the porch, my father holding his toolbox, the window in the small bedroom still sticks, been meaning to fix it since spring. My mother held a store-bought pie like a treaty. She was not sure would be accepted. It was not an apology. My mother does not make those. No speech, no tears. Just 2 people who had run out of versions of the story where they were the victims. I let them in. My father fixed the window. My mother set the table without rearranging a single cabinet, which from her is practically a peace accord. We ate, careful and small, and occasionally almost warm, and at 7 they put their coats on, because dinner had a start time and an end time now like a civilized treaty. At the door my mother said quietly, "It is a good house, Elena." From her, that was the whole apology I was going to get. I said, I know, Mom, and locked the door behind them, and the lock was just a lock. There is a drawer in my kitchen where a spare key sits, shiny, uncut by anyone's expectations, waiting for the day someone in my family earns it back. It might wait years, and I have made peace with that, because a family that only loves you when you are paying is not loving you, it is billing you. And the kindest thing you can ever do for them, and for yourself, is close the account and see who still shows up at your door without an invoice in their hand. That is the story. One folder of documents, 2 rounds of legal notices, 4 names on a court docket, and one spare key still waiting in a drawer. If someone's temporary stay is slowly erasing you from your own home, take this as your sign, put it in writing today.